Hi guys, and welcome back to Duralex Setlex. I'm Anna.
I'm Melissa.
And today we'll be talking about something completely different. We haven't done an episode like this so far, and it's different because we're going to be talking with you guys. A select couple of people are going to be able to come on the podcast from the International Relations and International Organizations program and the LLB, two programs which are offered here at RuG, and they're going to be able to talk about their experiences during the corona pandemic, how the university's response was, what their sort of experiences were, and if they liked it or disliked it the way that the university responded to the corona pandemic, if the response was satisfactory. The aim of this episode is just to showcase different diverse opinions and maybe give the university a kind of heads up or hint what they could do better next time or what was really good and they maybe should keep up the next time. So yeah, if you enjoy this sort of format, please let us know down below in the YouTube comments or via Instagram, maybe also via email, give our Spotify rating, all of these good things. Because if you do enjoy this episode, then we're going to be able to do this much more often, which would be very nice because we really enjoyed structuring and executing this cool episode. The way that this episode is going to be structured is that we're going to talk about the questions first, so I'm going to just mention them, and then each of the individuals will have their own testimony, so they have a little monologue where they can talk through their own experiences. We're going to do this because the questions are the same for every person, so yeah, it would be very annoying if we have them for every person. It would be kind of repetitive, so this is how we're going to do it. The questions that we're going to be asking today are, first, who are you and what course and year do you study in? Then the second question is, if you please could describe the university's response to the corona pandemic in only a few words, what would you say? And could you please elaborate on that? The third question is, have you ever had an interaction with the study advisors of your program? And if so, how did that go? The fourth question is for LLB Year 3 students only because we have a mandatory exchange period. So the question is, how was your exchange? Did you ever have any doubts to going on exchange? And how was your overall experience with that? And then the fifth and final question is, in your opinion, how is your program structured? Is it more theoretical or more practical based? And how is that for you? Is that a good or bad thing? What is your experience with that? And yeah, with this, we're going to be diving into the episode now, so enjoy.
If you could please tell us who are you, what year you're in, and what course do you study?
I'm Kate. I'm in my final year of my International Relations and International Organizations degree, or bachelor's degree.
If you could describe the university's response to Corona in only a few words, what would you say?
Is it bad to say a joke?
No, you can say
Okay, I thought it was a total joke.
Okay.
Can I give an example?
Sure.
So last year, my friend's laptop broke in the middle of the semester, and we had just gone into this super lockdown, like the lockdown of all lockdowns, where everything was closed, even the library. And he brought the laptop to Coolblue and said, "Hey, please fix this. I have to do my course online." And Coolblue were like, yeah, whatever. But because of COVID, it took them a really long time to fix it. And he couldn't follow his course because he was doing it all on his phone. And he was writing a 4,000 word paper on his phone. And he ended up failing the paper and he asked for an extension. And the teacher just said, if you were serious enough about the course, you would have found a new way to get a laptop. He emailed the Board of Examiners. The Board of Examiners took, 8 weeks to get back. And at that point, he had failed the course. Now he has to do an extra year, which is an extra 2,000 euros. And I thought that was totally disgraceful. I was really angry about it. I complained about it, but there was nothing we could do.
And was this person also in an international relations course, or were they doing something else?
We were in the same course together.
Okay, I see. And so what you're saying is that you thought the university response was really bad and improper, and could you say you feel like they didn't take students enough into consideration and stuff like that?
I would definitely say that even now with their continued policy of exams can only be 2 hours because of the COVID risk, but they have, in my last exam, we had 600 students in a room until 10 p.m. at night. When it was supposed to be a 3-hour exam, last minute it was changed to a 2-hour exam because of COVID, but then there were 600 people in the room and half of them were coughing because they removed the third resit option. So do they really care about COVID, or It didn't make sense to me. And that's still, even though the COVID is not over, but we see it as over in the Netherlands anyway, I think it's ridiculous that that is the policy that they're still going with.
Okay, so if you could elaborate maybe more on like the university response like throughout the years, maybe not necessarily this year with exams or like 2 years ago when the pandemic first began, like just overall, maybe for you could speak from a personal experience if something, I don't know, happened to you.
At the beginning, I was very sympathetic. I thought all of the teachers did a really good job. I took Chinese, and immediately we had, I know that's slightly outside of the remit of the university because it's with the Confucius Institute, but immediately we had online courses, and it was interactive. It was very fun. The teachers did their best. And also with our first online exams, the teachers did their absolute best to adjust. But then I thought that was the first 6 months, that was fine, and then we got into the next year and it was just same old, and we had all of these technical issues that should have been ironed out. Lectures were never interactive or fun. They removed half of our seminars because they said, oh well, it's just not the same online, so your seminar will either be an hour shorter or you won't have a seminar. And then also the lectures were oftentimes recorded from previous years. For economics, they just re-uploaded lectures from when the lectures were still physical, and just said if sometimes the material is different, so you need to just double check it yourself. I thought that was absolutely disgraceful because we're paying to be here. All of the fun had been removed from university, and even the educational aspect had also kind of been removed because I felt like I was following a class on YouTube. And if I had followed a class on YouTube, I think it would have been better than half of the lectures I had received. And I know most of the teachers tried their best, and I had some really great lectures, but it really doesn't compare. And I just felt towards the end of last year that the standard of education we were getting was so reduced.
Were you here throughout the whole pandemic? And maybe if you could also talk a bit about your mental health from like a student perspective, only if you feel comfortable, obviously.
Well, I didn't go home. I'm from Ireland, and I didn't go home for more than 2 years. The last time I went home was December 2019, and then the first time I went back was just last year, the end of the year. So I stayed here the whole time. I didn't leave Groningen. I was one of the very few. I lived in international student housing, SSH, with you guys. And within the first 2 weeks, we went from 400 students to 50, and then it got less and less. I guess I had it easy when it came to moving house because there was no one here. So I had the pick of all the houses in the world, which is quite nice. But yeah, there was a lot of times where I was very lonely, I think. But the hardest part for me has been coming back to physical school because I went from being very used to being alone all the time and having a very reduced circle of friends because, yeah, I didn't meet very many people. When everyone left the student house, everyone left. I haven't seen a lot of those people ever again. And then when I came back to university and I'm sitting in lectures, people have these huge friend groups that I haven't been able to maintain, or like when I see people, I remember them and I'm like, oh, it was so nice knowing you, but I don't have that connection with them anymore. And I felt much lonelier in the last few weeks than I did in like, say, last May and June, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, I kind of relate to your point as well, because it's really, really weird to be stuck in the house, you know, have to rely on like certain stuff and then just have to change it, especially here in the Netherlands. Like they really keep changing from like lockdown to no restrictions to lockdown to no restrictions, and now they finally settle on no restrictions, but it's still very weird to get used to it.
I also have my partner and his family have a lot of health conditions, so I had to choose between, I already have a job where I work in the restaurant industry, which is a lot of contact with a lot of people, so then I kind of had to choose between my partner and my job, or my job and my friends, and so that was difficult, and now it's a bit easier because yeah, I get that. Yeah, I know. I also felt like the moral obligation because of like having older members of family and stuff like that. I wasn't here, by the way, like I was in Romania, to not go out with people that I could have gone. Like I really restricted the circle of my friends, and then yeah, that also had an impact. Okay, but now back to you again. Have you had an interaction with the study advisors during the pandemic, and if so, how did that go for you? I had a bit of a personal crisis last year, and I got in contact with the study advisors. They're actually quite nice. I know that they in general, study advisors are very overrun with work, especially during the pandemic. I emailed with them a few times, did a video call. They made some notes down, so if anything happened with my grades, they would have a record of it. It was all fine in the end, nothing bad happened. They're okay. I don't find that the advice is ever so useful. Like, we had a issue with a teacher this year who was very inappropriate, and I reported it to the study advisors because she was incredibly inappropriate with students. And it took them like 6 weeks to email me back, and then they said, could you organize a meeting with her and the coordinator of the course? And she was in charge of all my credits, so I didn't want to have a meeting with her because that's a lot, like 32 credits. So it was very, not ideal. I never had the meeting. I never went forward with my complaint because I just thought, okay, it's 32 credits. Yeah, it's not worth bringing this complaint forward.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. That seems like a very abusive position.
Yeah, and also because it's like that's so weird. Like, that's not her. Like, obviously you don't want to put yourself in the position of being like in this sort of limbo of, okay, are you like gonna not give me my proper credits or what?
I mean, there's no proof that she wouldn't have given me my
Yeah, of
credits,
course,
but
of
it's this
course.
fear
It's-
of...
yeah.
It's the power imbalance that makes it weird.
100%, yeah.
Okay. So
Jesus.
weird. From what I understand, you have an overall good opinion of the study advisors, but sometimes they can miss the point a lot. They can be kind of maybe not ignorant, but just
Not proper response to sensitive issues, I suppose.
yeah, exactly. Okay, I don't know if your course has exchange program and if it's mandatory or not.
It's not mandatory. You can do an exchange or you can do a minor. So you could go, like I did the career minor, or you could do a minor in different faculty. I know a lot of people did law. You can also do an internship, or you can go do exchange abroad, either super internationally or just the Erasmus.
I see. So you mentioned that you didn't choose to go to exchange. How was that experience for you, like in the context of the pandemic? Did you think it was worth it? Would you have enjoyed it more, like aside from the general complaints that you mentioned earlier? Would you have enjoyed this more? Would you have maybe chosen a different option if the pandemic wasn't the context?
Well, the reason why I chose the career minor was because I was having a bit of a breakdown last year because I hadn't chosen a minor yet, and everyone else felt like, I don't know what it's like in law, but in IR, everyone's like, oh, I have this amazing internship that I organized 2 years ago, and I have this amazing study abroad that I'm going to do in China, and it's going to get me to my dream master's, which then I can do my PhD. And I hadn't thought that far ahead, and I was really panicking about it, so I emailed study advisors. And I did a phone call with him, or a video call, and I was like crying on the other end. I don't know what to do, I'm so stressed. And he was like, yeah, well, you're just gonna have to choose something, huh? And then I was like, I don't know, I don't want to do something online, I just don't want to. And he says, yeah, the career minor was fully in person last year, so maybe you should do that one. It's the easiest one as well. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that one. So then I did it. Yeah, it wasn't that hard. It was quite easy. The first half, you do kind of these classes on LinkedIn and networking. And then you have to write these diaries about how you're learning so much about networking and the value of networking in your life. And then the second half, we also did this really nice course called Working in Non-Governance with one of the lecturers from IR, and that was really interesting, where we did projects, we did a field trip to The Hague. And then the second half, we were working with a company who works on sustainable fashion, and we were developing a project for them. That was nice. It was supposed to be 6 students on the project. It was only 3. As with all group projects, you have a straggler, so then it was only 2 of us. It was nice. We worked with a Dutch fashion company. I learned a lot of practical things. I guess it was the most practical section of my whole degree so far. Learned a lot about writing business plans, about meetings, agendas. So that was nice, but I don't know how relevant it was to my degree in general.
Okay, thank you for sharing that experience. Last question. In your opinion, how is your program structured? Is it more practical or more theoretically structured? And what opinion do you have on it? Is that a good or a bad thing?
I hate the structure of the program. I really hate it. They have nothing optional. It's all mandatory. You have to do everything from start to finish. You have to do it. So there's a focus on, it's supposed to be because they want to give you an interdisciplinary bachelor or interdisciplinary degree, but I was forced to do economics classes, and I really don't excel at economics. I really struggled with it. Also, a lot of my classmates have done economics in Dutch and German high school. So we had in some of our lectures, the lecturer would say, you studied this in high school, so I'm not going to go over it, but it'll be on the exam. And when you're teaching at an international university, I don't think that is an appropriate method to take. And I would have benefited a lot more because I really struggled with last semester. We had international political economy. The lecturer was amazing. He was such a nice guy, but I really struggled with it no matter how hard I studied. And I put a lot of effort into that when I could have put my effort into some of my other subjects. And it just felt like a bit of a waste of my time. The degree is not very practical at all. It's very much theory. There's not a lot of group projects. We do a few policy briefs for employability, but they're only added for employability. So that's the most practical thing I think I've done other than the minor. And it's just very much theory. We have some courses where you try to apply it. So I did one on critical security, and I did one last year called methodology and research practice, where we had more freedom to choose something. So we did a really interesting paper on pornography. And then I'm writing my thesis on toilets, which I really enjoy, but I find a lot of the IR degree is very much all this realism and everything about China, everything about Russia, everything about America, and there's less room for students who have interests that lie outside of the main aspects of IR for them to explore it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think also, like, from an LLB perspective, our university, and this is actually what I've been talking to other people about, they think it's very theoretical. And for example, other law universities, they have moot courts like inside the program, you know, they have more practical stuff. They have, I don't know, mandatory internships and stuff like that. Not necessarily throughout the EU or the world, obviously, because every country can have a different policy for that. But like, even in the Netherlands, like right here, you know. So I think this is really weird. If you don't choose to do a master or like some sort of practice right afterwards that can make you, you know, very versed in like practicing the law, literally, like you're kind of stuck with, like, I think this is why a lot of people choose to stay in academia a lot after they finish, because it's all they know and they don't really have practical skills. And don't get me wrong, like academia is great, but it's a bit restrictive.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like it can be restrictive for an LLB student. Like, I don't want to work in academia, but what can I do if all I've done throughout the whole year is like you and international law? Like, it's just,
there's not much option there. Yeah.
We had one great teacher who last year organized, it was online, so it was kind of crap, but he organized this model UN kind of scenario where we had to debate topics. And if that had been physical, it would have been amazing, because it was supposed to be like a 2-day long event, but it was online. I was at my computer for 7 hours. I had a delivery of IKEA furniture come in, and I was trying to move chairs while also participate in the debate. It was really stressful. But then this year in the career minor, he was the teacher again, and we did this 3-day simulation of a government in crisis, and they were kind of being exposed for shady government practices and breaking the rule of law, and we kind of had to deal with that, and that was really practical and interesting. But yeah, other than that, nothing really.
okay. Thank you very much for sharing, and we hope to see you again very time soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry.
hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. Nice for you to come on. Could you please explain, just say your name, who you are, your age, and
Okay.
what year you study in?
I'm Lisa. I'm a law student as well, with Anna and Alyssa in the same course. And we're third years. And yeah,
So you study the LLB.
I do the LLB as well.
So could you please describe to me how you believe the university's response was, like, during the corona crisis? Like, do you think they did it well, or?
I think like it's very difficult because like no one expected this, right? So I think it's like, I'm not gonna say like they did horrible, because like no one expected this to happen. Like we're all, it's new for all of us. We all had to like adapt. Obviously like a lot because we didn't think like there would be a pandemic and our whole lives would be shut down. But there's definitely things they could have done better. But as I said, like it was a huge, like moving everything online so quickly. Obviously like the first blocks was kind of messy, and then the exams were also kind of like messy, and I don't think they were particularly well done, in the sense that like we couldn't go back to the questions and stuff, and like I think they could have really done better in like the way that they would examine us like at the end.
Kind of adding on to that, do you think that the study advisors, do you think that they played a role in this as well? And do you think, I know you've been to the study advisors before because I know you personally, but do you think that they give adequate response? I don't know if you like messaged them during COVID, but I know loads of other students did, and given the response that you received back in the day, do you think that they would have given adequate responses to the corona pandemic for students?
I think so, yeah, but I also think that there would have been like an overload, especially during corona, because a lot of like students obviously like had problems with like mental health and stuff, and like then they would go to the study advisors, right, but there would be like such a high number, so I'm not sure how well equipped they were to like accommodate everyone's needs. But personally, I always got a response pretty quick, I think. Like, I can't complain about that. I think they did. I think especially the one that we had, like, in our first and second year, who just left. Papine, yeah. He did a good job, I think. Like, I'm pretty happy with that.
Okay, so if you could, in a few words, just describe the university's response to the corona pandemic, how would you, just maybe in a sentence, how would you describe it?
It was... like, considering the circumstances, I think they did the best that they could do.
Okay, but do you also maybe think, given the funding that the university receives, they could have maybe done a little bit more for students maybe with special needs, or like people who were abroad, they didn't like maybe have access to the like university lectures once they came online again, and especially now during in our third year, there's like discrepancies, like there's now we're going online, like we're not online anymore, but like we were online, now we're going to person, now we have no recordings anymore, like do you think maybe that could have waited a year?
Possibly, yeah. I think possibly they could have kind of prepared themselves a little bit more, especially also because they had, this pandemic was quite long, and like, so they could have like adapted more towards the end, especially, which I feel like they did in some ways, but like considering like mental health and stuff, I just think the capacity maybe wasn't there. But yeah, I also remember they also like cut the tuition fees, which was, I think that was a good response.
But only in the second year.
Only in the second year, yeah, because in the first year we still had...
but they then upped it again this year, I think, as well.
Yeah, but...
And then
now
Corona
we're
was still ongoing as well, but do you know what I mean? Like,
I do, yeah. I think, yeah.
Okay.
Also, it wasn't by that. It was like half, I think, right?
When
they cut it.
Yeah, it was half. It was halved, and then for the first year it was still full. The second year was halved, and the third year was full again for us.
Yeah.
You went on exchange?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went to Vienna, to Austria.
Nice. Did you have any problems with your exchange, or would you say that all in all it was a good experience?
It was a great experience.
And also not just your personal experience that you had on Vienna, but like the help that the university gave you particularly.
You mean like for preparing to go abroad, or like my...
Preparing to go abroad, the funds that you received, were there on time? Was it sufficient enough given the country that you went in?
Yeah.
Was there enough guidance? Would you want it more or less?
I think financially everything fit well. Like, I think the funds that we got was enough for Vienna, but I think time-wise it was a little bit... Like I got my Erasmus grant super late, and I know a lot of people did as well, so I think maybe they could do a lot. They could be a little bit more timely with that, because you don't really need it at the end anymore that much. But preparing to go abroad, it's difficult because like in Vienna, like the semester starts October, right? So like they needed all these documents from us super early, but we just like weren't able to contact our mobility coordinators in Vienna at that time, because they were still on holiday, they were still on vacation probably, so we didn't receive a lot of the documents in time. Like we were 1 month later with everything, whereas in Groningen it kept going like the same pace, so I think that was a little bit difficult. Yeah, and then we had to change a lot of courses again because they didn't fit in the schedule, which was a problem with the Vienna University. Their course selection process is horrible. with the whole support that I got going abroad, I'm quite like happy with, like from Groningen.
Just as a last question, your opinion of the LLB as a whole, like, do you think the program is structured well? Like, is there any course where you were like, that was really unnecessary? Or do you maybe think the 7-week period that we have is too short? Do you think that we should have 14 weeks and then exams, just something like that? Maybe something that comes to your mind.
Yeah. So I love the program in general. I think there's a lot of really interesting courses that we get to do, very interesting professors that we get to like experience with, like learning from them. But I think that generally my study personality, it fits well that we have exams every 7 weeks, because the knowledge is fresh. Like you just go in, do the exam, it's pretty quick. Like also these 7 weeks go by super fast. And it just like is a go, go, go. And I quite like that. But I can also understand, because in a lot of countries it's not like that, right? So it's difficult. I think it really depends on like your personality, what fits better in your study rhythm. But yeah, no, I quite like the course. The only course that I really didn't enjoy, I don't know, can I say like, or is it gonna...
No, you can be free. You can honestly say whatever you want to say.
I mean, I didn't quite get the whole legal history. It's a little bit... It was a little bit, just a little bit dry, I think, for my liking. Everything else was quite nice, I think. I think we could have maybe had a little bit more focus, another course on European Union law, because it was quite crammed in the 7 weeks, and it was like people who do our degree generally have a good chance at working in the European Union one day, and so maybe they could have prepared us a bit better for that. But now we're also taking a course on it as well, and that's just started, so we'll see how that goes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your opinion.
Thank you. I hope I didn't do horrible.
No, you did very well. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so could you please explain to me who you are, what course you study, and what year you're in?
My name is Thea Haxi. I'm a third-year international and European law student.
Perfect. So could you please explain to me your personal experience with the university's response during the corona pandemic?
I think in the beginning, because it was a huge and quick switch from in-person to online, it was well done, I have to say, because I'm assuming it wasn't easy as well on the university's part to take on this huge responsibility. As the years, which is crazy to say, went by during the pandemic, I think they definitely could have adapted better. And there were some areas where I think they were lacking in respect to making it maybe a bit more interactive. Because I feel like at some point it became really difficult to follow a lot of lectures online and continuously be on the computer, and it's very easy to mentally log off as well. So I think it was just it felt like more of a one-sided thing, and students were on the other side of the computer but not really there, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing with us. Have you ever had an interaction with the study advisors of your program? And if so, how did that go? Did you feel satisfied? Did you feel like something was lacking on the response?
I do feel like sometimes I didn't feel the presence as much, because there were also times where it's not like they're always available in office hours as well, and sometimes I had pressing matters. I don't remember reaching out to them often, maybe once or twice. And when I did, although I had to wait maybe a couple of days for a response, I felt quite satisfied. But sometimes, for example, they would tell us that everything was going to be fine, but the teachers were really, they were expecting a lot from us, and it felt like two different sides of one side where study advisors are telling you it's completely fine, don't stress out so much. But then some of the teachers really putting an emphasis on how important it is, or making the course extremely difficult, and then the exam even harder, especially it being in an online environment, and they knew we had access to our books, and so it wasn't easy to just, for some exams, find the answers as easily as it could have been if we were in person. So I think, yeah, it's hard.
Do you wish that maybe the study advisors would have also offered maybe like mental health support or something like that for students?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think a lot of my friends and I, considering we're from an international background, we all went home for a while. And you know, that can be hard, especially when you've moved out of your parents' house and then you move back in again. And then you find yourself in an environment where not only you are studying or learning online, but everyone had to switch to being online. So it got quite mentally draining as well. And I think the university definitely could have offered more support instead of just sending random emails at times, you know, saying, oh, we're here for you. But I think they should have applied it a bit more and maybe tried harder to reach out. And yeah.
Thank you for your answer. As LLB students, we have to do a mandatory exchange program in our third year, which obviously was hindered due to the pandemic. So how did that experience go for you in terms of applying for exchange, like places where you could apply to exchange if you ended up going, because many of us didn't end up going? How was that for you?
I remember it was a process I remember we had a meeting about it in November, and then we never really talked about it until we had to send in applications and all. And I felt like there was a huge gap between those months where we weren't properly introduced to also how to use mobility and all those things. In terms of where I was going, there was always a big question mark of whether we could go because no one was safe, although some countries were already off the list, such as Australia, I think. I ended up going to France. I think the whole fact that they were telling us that if we were on the red list, we wouldn't have the grant, played also a huge role. And it was just, I remember a couple of months of insecurity because I also had to figure out whether I wanted to give up my room. And once I give up my room, I can't really, since I established it through a contract as well, I couldn't really just retract that. So if it would have ended up that France would have turned red last minute, I feel like I would have been left kind of, you know, with no means to continue, although I would have been able to continue here, but then personally I would have had no apartment, nothing. So I think it was just all left, it was kind of blurry, and I think they just should have made it either yes or no, because it was a very hard situation to just categorize and say, well, you can choose, but we have to see whether the country is red, yellow, orange code for coronavirus, so yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was also the same case for me during my exchange. I also had the same problem because I went to Ireland, so I share your experience.
Yeah, I didn't even end up going.
Yeah, I know loads of people who didn't end up going at all because of this.
Did you make that decision like closer to the third year, or how was that?
Yeah, and during the summer, I got accepted into the UK, and I was like,
that was also a whole mess, the UK as a whole.
Yeah,
so, I know
a lot
people
of my
didn't
friends
get their grants at all.
Yeah, my friends didn't get their grants either.
They weren't supposed to. Like the university canceled it.
It's like a massive like conspiracy because other students from different Dutch universities got their grant, and it's a nationwide thing. So the University of Groningen should have given them the grant.
Yeah.
And it happened last year as well with a student, and they sued the university.
Wow.
It's a massive thing.
Yeah, so I didn't end up going because I would have visited I'm Romanian, and Romanian people get denied entry for some reason, even though we are EU.
Visa and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the visa is 1,000 euros per year if you get like a working one.
That's why I can imagine also for some of my friends who are not EU students.
Yeah, no.
You know,
it's such a mess.
First
such a
didn't
mess.
end up going because
Luke
of
didn't
that.
end up going either.
Yeah.
It's a mess, the whole thing.
But too much was left. As I said, it was too blurry. It should have been dealt with like black and white. You know, for EU students, this is the option. These are the options for non-EU students, or maybe advice, like give us advice.
There was like nothing.
You know, exactly. It was just a big mess. I agree.
Yeah.
Did you like the course that you did, like the LLB? Do you think that it's a good course in itself, or was there anything where you were like, no, I didn't like the course that we did on, I don't know, some random course that you maybe like really didn't like and like you think has no place in the LLB?
Just like in brief, doesn't have to be
super
eloquent.
Maybe the course I didn't particularly like was legal history, but because I thought it was a lot for a 5-credit course as well, you know, a lot to learn. But otherwise, it was more in terms of not being able to also apply what we've learned. I felt like we've just been learning, but not really, you know, it hasn't been very interactive. But I think that's also mostly due to the pandemic as well.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Hi.
If you could please tell us who you are and what course you're studying and what year you're in.
Yes, my name is Ava, and I'm studying International and European Law in the second year now.
Okay, perfect. If you could describe the university's response to COVID in only a few words, what would you say?
I would say it was very organized overall and also long-term planning, because if you compare the response of like the University of Groningen to the Hanze, for example, their response was pretty messy and changed every week, which I know from my roommates. And the University of Groningen response was like, I always felt like I know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. Like I always knew what's coming, so I'm pretty satisfied.
If you could maybe elaborate more on this and why you have like a good opinion on it, you could maybe share your personal experience as well.
Yeah, for example, last year in the third block, I think it was, they always, in the beginning of the block, said that the whole thing is going to be online. Exams, classes, working groups, everything's going to be provided online. So me and my friends, we booked tickets to Fuerteventura, and I took my exams from there. And that wouldn't have been possible if they change it every week, or if they're like vague about the obligations that you have in person. So yeah, that was very fortunate that I was able to take exams over there, and I think that wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
How did you find your second year, right? So basically when you started your LLB program, like from the beginning you were learning everything online, right?
Yeah.
How did you find that experience, like maybe in terms of building community, or did it affect your learning experience, or how was that for you? And how did you make the transition to the second year of your study, where now it was kind of like a hybrid in the beginning and now everything is in person?
In the beginning, I would say it was very challenging because I moved to Groningen not knowing anyone, as most people assume, like I think did. And everything was online. There was a curfew, so it was virtually impossible to meet people. And I remember going on these walks with a stranger, because that was like a platform provided for by the university to meet one person at a time. And it always felt so forced and like a date almost, and it was just cringe. And it was incredibly hard to meet people, but luckily I get on very well with my roommates. So I had like a little community sense and like a feeling of home with my roommates. But outside of that, it was very difficult. And talking about my studies, getting up in the morning for a lecture at 9, if you can also watch it the same day at 4 in the afternoon, you're not going to be motivated to get up at 9. And I was so frustrated also by at myself for not waking up early and cooking and going outside and doing all these things, but just laying in bed for way too long and not doing anything. And that obviously had an impact on my grades as well.
So you would say your productivity kind of decreased because things weren't like in person anymore?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I didn't have the university experience in person before because I just started university in the lockdown. But comparing it now to the second year, when you go to the UB and you go to the lecture with your friends and everyone around you is doing the same work as you do, which is so motivating. Not having any of that was horrible.
Yeah, definitely. Even for us, it was a bit weird because we kind of started doing what you guys do now. And then we had to move to like really weird digital kind of experience through Zoom and Google and Blackboard and whatnot. And then kind of slowly but surely transitioning back to in person. So that was really weird, especially in the beginning, because when you guys started, they had already kind of figured it out a bit. But when we started, it was a whole mess. Like the university was literally closed for a whole month, them trying to figure out what's happening.
Oh, I can imagine,
Yeah. But yeah, moving on to the next question. Have you ever had an interaction with the study advisors of your program, of the LLB? And if so, how did that go?
No, I don't think I ever really had an interaction with them apart from like procedural things, like if you need a certificate for something. But apart from that, I didn't really use or make use of the opportunities that they would provide. Like I remember a therapist or like a university council that you could speak to and still can. But I was never in a position where I felt like I had to make use of that. So
do you have maybe any acquaintances or friends who made use of it, like So I assume your opinion is pretty much positive,
Yeah.
considering that you only needed them for like a limited amount of stuff. But maybe if one of your friends or acquaintances had a different experience, if you know anything about this.
No, I don't. I feel overall they're very accommodating and nice if you like stick to all the formalities and you approach them in a friendly manner. That's what you're gonna get back as a response. So I don't have to complain about anything really.
Okay, fair enough. And have you found the rest of the staff, like the teachers and other members of the faculty, helpful, or do you think the response was appropriate? Do you think they could have done more, or that things could have gone better overall?
I think that really differs from teacher to teacher and from class to class, because there's teachers that are very determined to make the online experience as enjoyable for everyone as possible. And then there's teachers that don't really care that much and they upload slides and don't even say anything about it and just use the materials they used the years before and don't custom it to the year that they're actually teaching. But some teachers really put in a lot of effort to make classes engaging and fun as well, and even share like personal stories to get to know them, because you're not going to really meet them anyways if it's online. So that really differed, I would say.
And last question, but also feel free to add whatever you want in the end. In your opinion, how is the LLB program structured? Is it rather more practical or more theoretical in your opinion? And also, do you think this is either good or bad?
It's definitely more theoretical. And right now I'm in a position where I feel like I really want to gain work experience, and I really want to see how all of the knowledge that we learn is being applied. And I would love to have an internship, but that's not part of the program, sadly. But it's very theoretical. And I remember starting the program, I was anticipating to do a lot more European and international law as such, but then also having like contract law and tort law and administrative law and all these things. I assume it's like essential to know that as well, to understand the bigger picture of international law. Because for example, like an international treaty is also just like contract law, so you need to know about that as well. But yeah, it's very theoretically, like very focused on, not applying it as much.
Yeah, that's true that the university could do more to like provide, mandatory practical learning for students. And although like there are a lot of working groups in the first years especially, but that number doesn't necessarily increase. On the contrary, it decreases as you advance in the program. So for example, us as third years, we have no working groups. We've had no working groups. I think there was one working group in data protection, but because of COVID, like it was really weird. And also they undermined how many people would participate. So only a few of the people got to actually go, which was, unfortunate. So that's really interesting. That's actually a complaint that many people have, because this university is a very good university for like theoretical stuff, and it prepares you definitely really well for academia, having to write so many research papers, but it doesn't really prepare you for like practical stuff. And there are plenty of universities, like not necessarily in the EU or like throughout the whole world, that offer like more practical opportunities. But also in the Netherlands there are universities like Leiden, I think, or maybe Tilburg, or I don't know. They offer moot courts, like mandatory moot courts.
UvA also does that.
What?
UvA also does that.
Or UvA.
I would love a moot court.
Yeah.
But I think at the tech track they had one.
They also have them in here. They also have them at the University of Groningen, but only for honors college students.
Yeah.
So
That's also a thing that I'm a bit mad about in a way, because the honors program is this like huge thing where you learn so many things, not only about law, but about other subjects as well. And you have these deepening classes. And that was never advertised. Like there was one email in the first year, I think, about it, and then it was never talked about. And I would have loved to be part of the honors program, but since my parents don't know about it, I don't know about it. Like, it was never discussed. And I feel like most people taking part in the honors program, I don't know, maybe their parents knew about it, or it's like a bigger thing for them growing up. So that could also be changed, because there they do like summer schools, and they also have projects.
Yeah, and also the fact that they get to learn so much more about not necessarily law, but also like psychology, philosophy, technology, I don't know, anything you want, I guess, which is, I mean, obviously you have to provide this kind of education to a select amount of people. Like, you can't just, like, probably the resources are I don't know, there's
Yeah.
cars or whatever. But it's a bit, I don't know, what's your opinion on this? Like, would you think it's a bit unfair maybe to people who don't have good grades, you know, who don't get into this honors program? Like, do you think we could also, like the rest of us who are not part of it, could also use some other kind of like new perspectives in the program?
Definitely. I mean, it provides you with a more like holistic learning approach, I guess you could say, where you take a look at the bigger picture, and that's going to be useful for everyone. And if that's just like you getting into the honors program, if that's just based on the first grades in the first year, I think that's very unfair, because a lot of people come here and their English is not their mother tongue. So in the first couple of blocks, you're going to be adjusting to the level of English. You're going to be studying vocab and things like that. So you're not going to get into honors then. And yeah, and also sometimes I feel like when you address the fact that university or this university is very theoretically and very like based on theory, the response is always, yeah, but it's not a hogeschool. So if you want to have more like applied learning, then you shouldn't be at a university, but a University of Applied Sciences. Whereas having work experience and working on projects is so important for academia as well, and not just for applied sciences. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can't just distinguish between either one or the other. Like, you have to kind of, you know, combine elements from one to the other and make maybe some applied courses or stuff, at least like parts of courses in the research universities, but also maybe, I don't know, I don't have any experience in like applied sciences university, but maybe add more theoretical stuff to it. I don't know, you know. Yeah, but yeah, so thank you. I conclude that you have a good experience overall and a good opinion of the LLB. And yeah, we wish you the best of luck next year. Oh, and maybe if you could talk a bit about exchange, like just in the sense of how you found the exchange process. I don't know, are your options restricted at all, or could you pick to go anywhere, you know?
Applying for exchange was very scary in a way, because I wanted to go outside Europe first. So I talked to the study advisors about whether that's a good idea with COVID. And whatever idea they would bring forward, they were like, yeah, we can't really say what you should do because we don't know. We don't know anything about how the pandemic is going to develop, which is true. But it was also so hard because I felt like I was left with a choice. Like, should I stay in Europe or go outside, like, on my own? And then I decided to stay within Europe. And now COVID's like almost over in many countries, and I'm kind of regretting not having applied outside Europe. But that's not really fault of the study advisors. They don't know what's going to happen in the world. But overall, the organization was pretty good. The deadlines, everything was pretty straightforward. And if you would have questions, you could always contact them. So yeah.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks,
and we hope to see you here again soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Could you please introduce yourself and what year and course you study?
Yes, I'm Sarah. I'm 21 years old, and I study international relations with international organizations.
Nice. And you're in first year, right? So
Yes.
please, could you kind of tell me, how was it starting at the university? And it was Corona, obviously. So maybe this was a bit difficult for you. Could you maybe explain the situation from you back in September? How did you feel? Were you even scared of coming here? Maybe were you a bit afraid and were okay, what is am I even gonna find friends? What was the situation?
I knew from a friend who studied here before that you were more able to meet people here than in Germany. But of course, it was very uncertain. I came here and didn't really know whether I was going to even see the university from inside, because I've heard from many German students that they've never seen the university, actually, some of my friends, and I was kind of scared that would happen too. But I was pretty surprised that we had the chance to actually be in seminars and kind of experience the student life, except for the lectures, which were not in person.
Okay, that's very nice. So when you first came here, did they kind of have an introductory committee or something like that where you were able to meet some friends? Because when I first came here, obviously it was in person, given that, but we had this introductory session where we all had a few glasses of wine or something, and then the lecturers would talk to us. That was first year, even before university started. Did they have anything like that for you where you could kind of talk to your peers a little bit?
No. I felt kind of left alone from the university side. I mean, we did have student mentors, which talked to us for an hour or something, and then we went to the park, but that was it. It wasn't really, they didn't really create room for us to really meet each other and talk to each other. Yeah, I was kind of missing that. I mean, we had the East End week, but that was not from the university, I guess. So yeah, it was kind of sad that we didn't really get the chance to really connect in the first weeks. Yes.
That's really upsetting. So like how were you able to kind of like meet your friends? And I mean, our mutual friend is Georgia, so how did that happen? Like,
I mean, the seminar groups were the place where you could meet people since lectures were online. First seminar group, we were a very mixed group, very different personalities, but I met one girl, and then I went, like, whom I'm friends with right now, and then I was in another seminar for law, and there I met Georgia. And for some reason, also another friend of ours, and then a group developed. And also in our group chat of our study, there was a guy, and he always like said, "Oh, there's a party at my house. Do you guys want to come over?" I didn't know him, and I just came. And through that, I actually made friends, and I'm still friends with them right now, just through randomly going to a party of a person I didn't know.
that's really nice though, but I mean, that's very out of your comfort zone, I guess, like kind of going out and being like, okay, look, I'm gonna go to this party that I don't know people, like anyone there maybe, like that's very like scary, no? Like,
I mean, yeah, it was scary, but I'm usually a very outgoing person. I don't really have trouble approaching people. However, I feel like for people who are more scared to approach people, it was probably very hard in the beginning to step out of their comfort zone. Yes.
so like now you like all of your lectures are in person again, or is it no?
No, we have, I actually only have one lecture in person right now. For the other subject, we don't have any lectures. And for the other, they actually took the recordings from last year and published them, which I don't really appreciate, because I think we're in university to actually be with the professors and in an environment where you actually feel like you can learn a lot. And I feel like when you're alone at home and need to listen to a very, I mean, like, the recordings are okay, but I feel like lectures in person are way more interactive.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
No, and I really miss that, because especially for that subject, it's pretty dry, and I think it could be more fun if we actually interacted with the lecturer or just the students next to us in the lecture hall.
It's also much more difficult than to ask any sort of questions, right? Like, you have to email them and then maybe they won't reply, and then maybe you have another question. Like, it's very...
Yeah, we do have a Q&A session, but it's a very bad time for me, so I can't really attend. Yeah, so it would be nicer if we had the opportunity to actually ask during the lecture.
That's fair enough. Did you, like, obviously, like, there's study advisors for your course as well. Did you ever, like, have an interaction with them maybe at the beginning or now? Or, like, you have friends who you know of that had an interaction with them, and it was, like, what was that like? Are they, like, very... like inclusive or like very like approachable? What's your sort of feel?
I remember we had an introduction video or something in the beginning, and they introduced the study advisors just by showing pictures. Therefore, I did not really, like, I knew that they existed, but I didn't know how to approach them or anything. I don't know any friends who ever approached them because I think we don't really know a lot about them. We just know that they know a lot about our program and can help us with a lot of cases. I once texted them actually because of a question of a reset, and they could help me a bit, but in the end they didn't answer anymore. So I don't know.
What a mess. So, like, as a final question, like, in your opinion, obviously you've only had like a little bit of time in your course, only almost a year. Do you think your course, from what you know now, is more theoretical or practical, and like, would you change either of the two?
The course is definitely very theoretical. I remember when I applied for the course, on the website it said it's one of the most theoretical courses of the university, but I did not really know what it meant until I started studying it. We have a lot of readings, which is fine, but I think the readings are just way too much, and they put so much they give us so many readings that it's very overwhelming. And if I'm being honest, I have a hard time finishing them every week. It's just a mess. And I just met up with a teacher from my high school recently, and I told her about like how much we get to read here, and she was actually super surprised and couldn't believe it, because in Germany I feel like, I mean, at least for my friends, it's kind of different. They don't have to read that much, and I feel like they're just overwhelming us with information we can't really process in such a short period of time. So I don't know, I would actually like to apply everything rather than just read, but I mean, I signed up for university and not a University of Applied Sciences, so I guess it might be my fault. But especially for the exams, I'm not really satisfied with like how theoretical they are. I think you could apply the concepts way more in exams to really show understanding, which I really miss, because I think it is more about knowing what you do instead of just learning by heart. So I'm actually not satisfied with that part of the course.
No, I've heard that as well from like Georgia and also other people like that I know that study the international relations course, that it's like readings that are like not like, some of them aren't really like necessary, I want to say, and like it's so like the information is like so diverging, and all of these like scholars that like say these things, and then you have to apply that in exams, have to like quote what they say.
Yeah.
But you obviously like, you're not gonna, if you read 14 different like texts, I want to say, like you're not gonna remember every single word that the scholar said, you know, like obviously that's not feasible.
We just had an exam where we had to explain a certain quote or word with like 4 subcategories, which I did not remember from the reading. So I think the focus is very off for the exams on my course.
Yeah, but then also I feel like if questions like that come up, then it's just based on the readings, then why do you have to watch the lectures if the lectures explain completely, like not different concepts maybe because they're obviously related, but I mean, then you might as well just do the readings and not listen to the lectures.
Yeah, like I felt that a lot with other courses. It was either that the lectures were way more important, or the readings or nothing at all. For history, for example, we just had to kind of memorize everything. It was just we got the answers already beforehand. It was a mess, I think.
That's also super difficult, like studying for the courses, because then you don't, every course is obviously different. You don't know how you're supposed to like revise for the course. If some of them are like learn everything by heart, and other ones are like, no, I want the specifics, but like they don't really like tell you, so a bit left in the air, and it's a bit like, okay, now I have to do the reset, like.
Yeah, it's messed up. I feel like also a lot of people have to take resets in our program. I don't know if that's normal, but it's crazy how many people have to take a reset. Like, I'm wondering how you could change that, or like help the students pass like from the university side, because I mean, obviously we can also blame ourselves if we don't study enough or anything, but still I think the university could kind of support us to get to know the university system a bit better, because I had no clue how university worked and they didn't really explain. I was very overwhelmed in the beginning because they didn't guide us in any sort of direction. They were just like, yeah, do it. And I was like, okay, that's how studying works, okay, but like I think I still haven't figured out how it completely works. I mean, I do the stuff they give me, but if the university, I mean, I think there are courses offered, like how to study, for example, or something, but I don't know. I've never thought about taking these courses because no one does. But I think they could be a bit more, like they could help us more to find our way in the university, at least in the first year. So I think universities shouldn't necessarily lower their standard when it comes to exams, but they should change the structure of an exam, or rather the approach to an exam. Because I think it is important to have a high standard in exams, because you want to test whether your students are studying and in the end becoming experts on that topic. However, I feel like if you would, for example, support the Danish approach where you have open book exams and you really need to understand the concepts, this is so much nicer for us students too, because it's really anchoring in our head. And especially for the exams I've written, for example, in academic skills, we really had to apply concepts, which was very beneficial because I think I could still pass this exam with a decent grade because I really needed to apply the concept. I really tried to understand what I was actually asked, which was really beneficial. And now I can still answer questions about the exam and everything, because I feel like it's really stuck in my head. When I think of history of international relations, we really needed to learn everything by heart. Sometimes even things I think we will never hear about again. So I think I forgot everything about that. But when it comes to other courses where we needed to apply, I feel like it's very...
Like it's still very much in your mind, right? Like you just know, like you understood the concept and you're able to go forward.
Yeah, I can.
In life situations. Right?
I can always reproduce what we did in the course, which was what I actually expected from university. I didn't like the concept in school where you had to learn everything by heart, and I thought in university it would be more applied in exams. So I think they could actually change that about the exams to make the passing rate higher, because then the people who pass are actually the people who understood the content of the course, and not the people who can just learn by heart and forget it the day after.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so who are you and what course you study and what year are you in?
My name is Georgia and I'm studying international relations as well, same as Sarah, and I'm also in the first year.
Perfect. So obviously also in the first year, how was your experience when you first came to the university?
Well, the university, as Sarah already mentioned, the university kind of like left us alone a bit. We had a mentor meeting, but I think it only took place once, and it wasn't really like a proper forum to like meet other people, for example. But CLIO or ESN, they have like lots of parties, and you can really like meet new people there. But of course, it's a bit harder if you're like not in person every time.
Of course, and they're also not the university.
Yeah, they're
bodies,
not. I guess they're not like really
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
university. It's more like student-led. So
Is
yeah.
that how you met your friends then, through those organizations, kind of, or how did you first meet your
I
friends?
think like most of my friends I actually met through the seminars, I would say, because it was really nice that we had actually like a hybrid version of the study program. So we had the 3 seminars each week, and the lectures were online, which I actually prefer because you can just like watch them whenever it suits you the best. So I met my friends through the seminars.
Was it difficult for you walking up to people and being super like extroverted and asking them, hey, how are you, do you want to grab a coffee sometime? Like, was that kind of difficult, like making that step at first, or like did you experience that most people came to you and were like, hey, who are you?
For me it was a bit difficult, to be honest, because I don't know, I mean, it's a bit hard to like get to know people and to not come off too strong, if you know what I mean, like not to be too intrusive or whatever. So it was a bit harder for me to find friends in the beginning, but I had I was lucky, so because I already knew some people like back from home. I had a small friend group already, which was of course like a good start then.
Yeah, that's good. That's really nice. But you said that your mentorship, that was only one time, or did you have it once a week? Because I remember when I first came, we had it like once a week for like 6-7 weeks.
I think we actually only had it like one time. Yeah, I think so at least. And my mentor was really nice. She also answered like a lot of my questions as well via WhatsApp. But you didn't really like met people through the mentor meeting then. But of course, you had the seminars group where like the same people for each subject. So you really got to know like these people at least. And then in the second block, they changed the seminar groups again. So you got to meet like a new people as well.
That's very nice then, at least. How would you say the university's response like was from what you've kind of experienced in the past like 6 months? Would you say it was like really good, or did you were like, okay, maybe they could have done a little bit more and maybe like put us together in like a little group besides the seminar, like outside of university maybe, or did something like that ever like hit you and you were like, okay, this is like a really good idea that they should have done?
I think it was really good that we had like at least the seminars in person to get to know other people, and I think that was a good like step from the university. But other than that, I think they didn't do anything else, so it would have been nice to like kind of have drinks, for example, or like a get-together, but I think it was also probably because of the COVID restrictions that they couldn't like get so many people together as well. So yeah, but I think they could have done a bit more maybe in the beginning, but yeah.
Do you think like now it's obviously better because you have like most of your lectures now in person, besides like one, I think, right?
No, we have one lecture actually in person, which is really nice because it's statistics, and I think it's just easier to understand when you're not distracted by your phone. But the other 2 lectures we have online, which I, to be honest, prefer, because it's just easier to manage your schedule. Then you can just watch them whenever it suits you the best, which I like.
Do you think it might be like good for them like going forward now in the next couple of years, because obviously like it's going to be more towards only in person? Maybe they should do a recording as well, like, and post that as well, so people can also like watch it in their free time, because I know in our course they post a recording but then you can only watch it for like a week, but I mean that's still good. I think they should have maybe like keep that up. Is there something like this in your program too?
So you can watch the recordings like till the end of the block, I think. So you can watch them like you really don't have to watch them week by week, whatever you prefer, which is also kind of nice that they leave them uploaded, because then in order to prepare for the exams, you can really rewatch them and look at the slides again. So I like it that they record them, and I think it would be good to do that in the future as well, because it's also, especially with such an international course, it's really nice then that people can visit their family, for example, for a longer weekend, because they can just like watch the recordings afterwards, don't have to go to the lectures in person.
Have you ever had an interaction with study advisors of your program, or do you know of anyone that did, and was that good or bad?
I didn't have one personally, but I know a friend of ours, she's changing the program, and I think she went to the study advisors in order to like seek help and ask if she could do like a double program, or if that's not possible, and I think they helped her pretty well. But as I said, like personally I haven't had any experience with it yet.
Is that because you don't have any like problems, or is it because you kind of don't know who they are and they haven't like really come on and like told you, hey, if you have issues, reach out?
So I think they only mentioned that like during the introduction week, so only once. But I'm aware that we have study advisors, and I'm aware that I can just find them online. And I will probably like go to like an appointment in the future, because I'm thinking about doing some extra courses as well, which maybe suit my interests a bit more. So I'm planning on meeting them, but it's quite easy to find them just online.
Okay, nice. So you don't have like, they don't do office hours or something like that?
I think they have office hours, but I'm like just not aware of it yet.
You're not sure. Okay.
Yeah, because as I said, I was only mentioned once during the introduction. That's like 7 months ago. So I can't remember that properly anymore.
Okay, that's fair enough. So in your opinion, is your course structured more theoretical or practical, and like what would you kind of change? Because you said you might take more courses that suit your interest more as well. What did you think international relations or international organizations was, and what did you like think it's gonna be, you know?
So I would say it's really theoretical, but as Sarah already said, that was also mentioned on the website beforehand. I actually like the theoretical approach. However, I think it's a bit sad that we don't talk about news, for example, that often, even though it would like fit our subject of the week really well. So for example, we had an international organization, we discussed like energy actors and how they influence the whole like international politics situation, and that was the week where Russia invaded Ukraine, and we didn't really talk about that in class, which is of course unfortunate, because you could like discuss the energy actors like with help of the news, and we didn't do that. So it's a bit too theoretical in some points, I would say. So I would say the point where I'm most unhappy with is probably the whole exam structure, because it's just about reproduction. It's very demanding, and many people fail, and I think it's a bit weird that's that like a passing rate of 55%. It's really good, which is a bit surprising to me. So I would agree with Sarah, like the part I struggle with the most is the whole exam and examination process we have here, because you just have to know the stuff by heart, and I would rather much like have an open book exam in the future and just have my notes next to me and really like show that I understood the concepts and that I can apply them as well, and not just like blindly reproduce whatever I've studied by heart. So I would agree with her on
Also,
that.
I feel like then sometimes when you just learn by heart, you learn like everything by heart. It's difficult to distinguish what actually the question wants you to put down, you know? So you might put like much more, like I feel like that's what I do anyway when I have to learn by heart. I put much more information down because I'm like, I know this, I learned this by heart, like I can really do this. But when I have my notes, I can really be like, okay, this is really unnecessary, I don't really need to put that in, and I can much
And
more
don't waste time on that part then.
yeah, exactly. And I can really like try and adequately structure and
Really,
public
like,
exam question.
Use whatever you have learned and answer the exam question the best way possible.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much for having me, Anna. My name's Elaine. I'm in the LLB International and European Law Programme at the RuG. I'm in my third year, so final year.
So if you could describe the university's response in only a few words during the corona pandemic, what would you say? Like, what would your first kind of thoughts be?
It was decent, but definitely could have been a lot better, I think.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Just like explaining kind of maybe how you felt at first, like when everything kind of went down, and then how your maybe view changed, or maybe when it stayed the same throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean, I think no one really expected it to go. Obviously, at the start, it was like a few weeks maybe was like planned for the restrictions. You know, everyone initially, well, I went home anyway, I went back to Ireland. And I was kind of just expecting to be there for like maybe a few weeks and then come back and go back to like completely normal. And obviously I think the university felt that as well. So I don't know if they prepared as well as they, like, obviously it's a pandemic, it's not expected. But just in terms of the level of online learning and like the supports available, yeah, definitely there could have been more, because I think it felt quite isolated for a lot of people. You know, you're at home in your room, like getting your degree basically. It was very strange.
Yeah, so with the support, did you ever have any interactions with like the study advisors, or do you know of any like friends who like kind of had like interaction where it was like maybe not as adequate as it should have been, or maybe there should have been a bit more support, especially with like mental health? Because I know loads of people, especially in LLB, that's the only people I know really.
Yeah.
Those ones.
It's all my friends.
All my friends. You know, they like kind of had like mental health issues, and like I feel like also it's like a law degree is very like intense in some. I'm not saying other degrees aren't, but I feel like there should have been a lot more like support, you know, present.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any personal interactions, to be fair. Yeah, so I can't really speak on like how well the study advisors like handled it. For me actually, Kirsten, she was always really helpful.
She's a legend.
Yeah, she's a legend. The only time I actually ever reached out to them was for a course in second year, Public International Law. I bombed. Well, I didn't bomb. I nearly passed, but like, and obviously there was no like physical, you couldn't like physically go in and appeal your grades. So it was like a whole email process, and then I had to do the resit. But I was just so stressed because I put a lot of work into the first exam, you know? And then I was like, how can I even improve? Like it felt so, like the online exams for me, I felt didn't really reflect your ability, because like the time was cut, everything was like shorter.
And also like more questions, right?
Yeah, I know you couldn't, once you're submitted, you can't like go back. Like that was a big thing for me.
It's really weird. I really hated that.
So yeah, I just felt like it was quite unfair. You know, I felt a bit like helpless of like, how can I like show my abilities if this is the only way? And especially in that instance, I don't think
No, I agree.
professors.
I feel like also the exams should have been a lot like targeted, like, you know, like structured a bit better.
Yeah.
It was like less time but more questions.
It
And
didn't make sense
online,
at all.
You can't go back, and you're like, okay, like.
And I think their logic was there's like you have all your resources, so we don't want to give you too much time to like look through them, but you didn't even have time to like
look through them at all.
yeah, or to read the questions.
Some of the questions were so long, and I was like, I need like 20 minutes to
I'm a slow reader.
And then there were like all of these names that all sounded exactly the same, and there was like one syllable like change or something, and like
yeah, no, it was
so
Yeah.
Such a mess.
But no, in that instance, she was really helpful for me anyway. So, but in terms of like mental health help and facilities and stuff, I can't really speak on it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, so you went on exchange, right?
Yeah, I did. I went to Pécs. It's a city down the south of Hungary, which actually wasn't one of my initial choices. But yeah, I'm really glad I went there. It was really good. Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely.
That's really good. So like, was there, because like we started the exchange progress like I think a year ago now, roughly.
Yeah, I think
like
so.
Applying and stuff like that. Was there at any point, because I feel like especially towards the end, it was very like, okay, we don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe it's gonna be red. Maybe it's gonna be yellow. Maybe it's gonna be green. We don't know. Maybe everyone has to stay in Groningen and we can't go on exchange at all because of the national like change for travel. Was there any point where you were like, I don't even know if I'm gonna go, or were you questioning going in the first place? Were you a bit like, maybe it's gonna be really shit, because I think the year before us, some of them went, but then it was like completely online.
Yeah.
How was your experience?
For me, I mean, there were times where I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go, just because Hungary, like, I think it was red for a while, and then it was orange for a while, and it was, quite up in the air. But there was never a point where if I was able to go, I was always going to go. You know, I knew the restrictions were like less in Hungary than they are here. So for me, it was just like, I want like some proper student experience, because it had been a while, obviously, since, you know, you get to like really socialize and get the, you know, your typical like university experience. So no, I was always going to go if I had the option. And then in the end, it was a green country, so it was all fine. I was able to get the grant. I know some of my friends were in like the UK, for example.
But that's a whole mess, you know.
Yeah.
Like they had like problems with the university with that, and like they're in like a legal battle, I think, as well.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's quite.
Oh, intense.
Yeah, it is. Like I think because from what I know anyway, the people there, like from our university, didn't get none of their grant.
No.
And then they met people there that came from the Netherlands, but they had their grant.
What?
And obviously it's a nationwide thing, so they can't just decide, like, you know. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
As well. And then
it's a lot of money. One of my friends was in London without a grant. That's expensive business. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it's crazy, because they asked as well, like at some point, because they didn't know if they were actually enrolled in the university or not, because they didn't have the grant. The people at their universities were saying, if you don't get a grant, you're not enrolled through the Erasmus, so you have to pay the fees at the university. And
the full
the full tuition fees, and they're like, we can't pay this.
The UK is a lot more expensive than the Netherlands as well. Yeah.
So like now they're like in a bit of a back and forth with the university, and I think the same thing happened last year as well. And the dude actually sued the university.
Is he successful? Like,
I don't know. It's still legal battle now. It's like 2 years onwards.
But you'd think if it happened last year, universities would, you know, realize and not make the same mistake. But yeah,
it's a bit of a mess.
Bit of a mess. That sums it up. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I feel like the whole, like even for me, because I went to Ireland, obviously. Good old Galway.
Galway. What a place.
Oh man. But yeah, it was also so near, because we were like, what's gonna happen? Half of my course there was half of my whole degree, I want to say, is like completely online, and then it was like the university got hacked, and then everything was in person, and it was.
I heard about that. Oh my god.
And then they couldn't like keep people. All of them couldn't be on site, because obviously it's like health hazard and COVID and stuff, and then everything had to be moved online again, but they couldn't do online because of the Wi-Fi wasn't there on campus. It was such a mess.
Yeah, that sounds really not ideal. But yeah, I was really lucky in that sense. Like I know you were saying, like you had a lot of online things, so it was hard to get like the full student experience. Like Hungary, there was no restrictions. All in person. The only restrictions, well, they had a mask mandate for like public transport when I first arrived. That was like lifted by the time I was gone. That was the only restriction. So it was like back to normal.
That's really
so it was really nice. Yeah.
Get a bit of the taste of life back.
Yeah. And then obviously the restrictions eased up after we came back here, which was also.
But it was so nice.
So yeah.
So good.
Yeah, ideal. But yeah.
Nice. Okay. But yeah, so like overall, because you know you're in your third year now, writing your bachelor thesis and all the good stuff. looking back at the 3 years that you've been through, do you think the course that we study is more like theoretical, practical, and like, do you think that's a good or bad thing? And what would you say, like, are there any specific points that you're like, okay, maybe the university could improve this for the coming years, where you're like, okay, like, maybe that wasn't like the best?
I think our course definitely is a lot more theoretical than practical. And for me, yeah, that wasn't an aspect I liked about it. Like, obviously, it's law, it's always going to be very theoretical. But for example, what I liked in Hungary was we had courses where moot courts were part of our like grades, which
really nice.
it was really nice. Yeah, because I never, like, obviously they have ELSA has the moot courts, but
Yeah.
it's not the university course, you
And I
know,
think
it's
you
like
also have to,
separate.
like, apply, right? Like,
Yeah.
you haven't chosen to do it or something.
Yeah, it's a whole process, you know, whereas in Hungary it was just, this is a course you're taking, so this is, obviously there was an exam and stuff as well, but there was also a whole moot court that was like put into your final grade based on how you like present your legal arguments, you know, more about even like presence in like a courtroom, a moot courtroom, obviously, stuff like that. And that was like one of my favorite parts about like the courses I did there, because it was just so different. Like here it's very much, you watch your lectures, you do, well, not even this, we don't even have working groups like this semester, but usually you do your working groups, which is a bit more practical, you know. But it's all just very much like textbook learning and then applying it to an exam. Whereas, yeah, so I think more practical aspects would have, it's still, I think it's a really, really good course. I'm really glad I followed it, but I think that could definitely be an improvement. Also for like motivation and like how passionate you are about what you're studying. If you get a chance to like present it and argue it yourself, I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, also like teamwork and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Thanks for having me.
So could you please tell me who you are, what year you study in, and what course you actually study as well?
Yes, so I'm Lena, I'm 22, and I do the LLB in International and European Law in third year.
Perfect. So obviously you're in third year now. You've experienced Corona quite a bit.
I did.
Could you please explain to me, like, if you could describe the university's response in only like a few words, what would you say? Like, what are you feeling?
I honestly think that the response was quite fast. That's one of the words that I think of, because I'm from Germany, and in relation to how things worked out in Germany, I was actually quite impressed, because we had one system, the lectures were changed quite quickly to being online, and it was directly before our exam season, so all of those exams were cancelled and moved to the next exam season. But apart from that, courses could just start after that exam season online. So that was pretty good. And I also think that they definitely provided a lot of support for teachers. I don't really know about the students, but I know that, like, I worked in the Department for Educational Support and Innovation for the university and was part of the many teaching assistants that the university hired, in addition to the ones that they had before, just to help out everywhere with technical issues and just creating atmospheres that were kind of more interactive and the most interactive that they could be online. So there was a lot of support definitely for the teaching side. For the students, I honestly never really talked to the study advisors. I know that they emailed us and offered help, but I never actually talked to them, so I don't know about that.
Okay, fair enough. So thinking of, like, how did you feel when everything went online at first? Like, you probably went home, I assume?
I did.
Probably everyone else did as well, yeah. What were you thinking? Like, what went through your head? And then kind of how did that progress over the 2 years that it stayed online? Because obviously we had the first year that finished, then we had the full second year online, and then third year.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I think I actually didn't think too much about it. I kind of, as like many people, I think thought, okay, this is not like gonna last for my whole study, you know, which unfortunately didn't work out like that. But yeah, so in the beginning I was pretty chill. I was not too mad about the exams being cancelled. I went home for a couple of weeks and then came back, and actually was here during all the online education as well in the rest of the first year. And I don't know, in the beginning I actually thought it was even kind of fun and I enjoyed it in a way. I also like it was a bit of a mess because everyone had to get used to it, and also the professors and like lecturers had to get used to lecturing online. But it was alright, and I don't know, I think I was coping quite well with it. During the second year, it for me got pretty bad, like around October, November, when everything closed down again, and I was completely overwhelmed. My grades in that semester, terrible. I just couldn't. I was so happy I made it through the exam season and just like passed my courses, and that was all that mattered to me, because I couldn't even study anymore. And then it got better again a bit after that, partially also because I just found a lot of like sports outside that I was just doing to have a little bit of a balance there. But yeah, at some point in second year, I really did not enjoy online education anymore. And also the atmosphere in general in my friend group changed because everyone was already then so done with it and was just lacking motivation to even like join the online lectures. You could always rewatch it, and then there was like the question, why would I even join? The seminars were, I guess, as interactive as they could be online, but then we also never really turned on our cameras and stuff. So I don't know, that was kind of bad. And then there was the whole exchange thing came up in the second year, of like thinking where to go with Corona. Was it even possible, because we have a mandatory exchange? So there was the question, what do we do? Do we go? Do I have to do the alternative? Do I move my semester abroad? But then the mood got a little bit better, at least during spring again.
No, I feel that a lot as well. Like, I had a similar experience around the same time. It was horrible. I really disliked that though, like those exams, like October, and then the exams in January. It was so bad for me. Yeah. I think also the courses were kind of like not my favorite. Like, I didn't really like LPP. That wasn't really.
Oh no, same.
Didn't like that one. Yeah. Super dry as well, and I like, because it was I think the first international relations course we did. Yeah. But it was, I had first of all like no idea what he was like. The first lecture I was like, this is cool, because he was talking about like authoritarian and democracy. Like, I remember this so vividly. And then after that it was like the garbage can. I was like, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I also really did not enjoy that course. The paper that I wrote, I think we had like with a partner, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wrote it with a friend of mine actually, which was perfect, and that was quite nice. But the course itself, I didn't really enjoy that. And public international law was just really hard, honestly. Like so that exam.
Yeah. And then it was so short as well. You had to I remember the questions were so long. Yeah. It was a mess. Yeah. So tell me about like exchange. Where did you go, and like did you really think of like where tell me everything.
Yeah. So my exchange story was a bit wild, as one of the many, I think, that happened during COVID. I really wanted to use the opportunity to go outside of Europe, because we have a lot of really nice partner universities there. However, at that point, we still had that regulation of like having the country code of like orange and red, and then you couldn't go, or at least not with the grants. So it needed to be green or yellow. I think yellow was also fine. Yellow, yeah. So then I looked at countries outside of Europe and was like, okay, what could be safe to go? And I would have loved to go to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. That's kind of what I wanted to go from the beginning.
Because you also speak Spanish,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to go to Argentina, but that was like, once COVID started, I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. And then I chose New Zealand and Australia, because those were doing really well with COVID. So I was like, there's actually a possibility there that those are going to be green or yellow, and I'll have the possibility to go. So I applied, and obviously there weren't many applications, so I also got in. Usually I think it's pretty hard to get into those universities, but barely anyone actually applied for outside Europe. So I got into the University of Newcastle in Australia. And well, we got that email like second week of February or something. And then about a week later, Australia decided to leave their borders closed until the end of the year, like at least. And my semester would have started in July. and then a bunch of the Australian universities started to like completely cancel their exchanges, the University of Newcastle actually said, well, if it's fine for your university, you can do online uni. And I was like, well, how am I going to do online uni in Australia from the Netherlands?
It
Like,
could be like at night as well.
yeah, exactly. It's like literally like what, like 10 to 12 hours, I don't know, something around that, of a time change. So I was like, okay, that's a funky opportunity. But what was really nice was that I talked to Manon, who works in the international office here for the exchanges, a lot during that time. And as like the other universities had also cancelled their exchanges, she was like, don't worry about it. The deadline for inside of Europe for the application was the 1st of March. So we could just, within like the 10 days that were left, we were able to write a new application for inside Europe. And they told us that, well, you can do that and you just apply like normally like everyone else. But for like the most popular choices, so like Edinburgh,
That's so
Budapest,
nice.
whatever, Dublin, whatever, like those will probably not work
Oh, I
because
see,
we'll have,
I see,
yeah,
yeah.
because we'll have in mind that you already got into one university before.
I see. I thought they were like, you can
Ah.
choose one of the good ones.
No. That would have been
Yeah,
nice.
I was like, that's so nice.
No, but that was okay. I didn't want to go to any of the like really popular ones anyways. And then I took a very different choice. And I was like, I was looking into courses and I wanted to do either human rights courses or environmental law courses. And then I saw that we had a partner university in Iceland. So I actually chose the University of Iceland as my first choice because they had a master's program in environmental law, which I would have followed there. And I also got into that one, which was really nice. And I was super excited about it. Also, wild change from like Australian coast life to like Iceland. But anyways, I was excited. New adventure. And then, yeah, around like mid-April, I was very confused because the University of Iceland had texted me and the other girl that got in that they would like process our nomination and then they would let us know how the application process would go. But they didn't. Like, we never got another email or something, and like the deadline was the 1st of May, I think. So at some point we were kind of like, okay, this is weird, like something's off. So I emailed them and then they said, well, actually, like, we only take master students. And in your file it says that you're bachelor students. And both of us were like, what?
Are you kidding me?
How's that possible? Because the university sent bachelor students there in the past. Just not like the 2 years before because, well, first of all, Corona, and then the year before no one wanted to go. So like the last time that they sent someone there was like 3 years ago at that point. So I forwarded that email to Manon and I was like, what's happening? She was just as confused as us. She was like, I have no idea what happened here. Apparently they changed their policies or something in those years where no one went, but they just didn't let the university know. And also Manon was like, it doesn't make sense for us to send master students there. Like, we don't have master students that want to go there. And then she tried to argue with them and be like, can you just like give them a
Just one
chance?
time,
Yeah, exactly. Just like now, last time, they're like, they can do this, like the master courses, and they can take the workload, whatever. Didn't work. So it was the end of April and I factually did not have a place for a semester abroad. So then Manon gave us the leftover list and was like, this is what I have left over. What languages do you guys speak? And in that point, it actually worked out quite well for me because I thought about going to Spain. But in that moment where I had to prepare the application for Inside of Europe, I didn't have any certificate stating that I was fluent in Spanish, although I was fluent in Spanish. So I couldn't apply for university in Spain. And then there was the leftover list. There was still Granada on there in Spain. And I was like, okay, like at this point, I don't care about the courses. I just want to go somewhere nice. And then I was like, Granada sounds lovely. If they still take me, I'll go there because I speak Spanish. And then, yeah, in the end I could go to Spain. And I actually went to Granada. At the same time, I was kind of looking for internships and stuff because I didn't want to do the alternative. So I was like, okay, they messed it up so many times, like something always came up. I'm gonna have a backup plan for this one too. So I would have done an internship instead and then moved my semester abroad to the summer. But it worked out and I went to Granada and it was very lovely.
Oh, that's so nice. So there's a happy ending to that.
Yes, there's a happy ending to the mess. It was just, it wasn't like bad. And honestly, Manon...
also not the university's fault, yeah. Just
Yeah,
yeah.
It was literally like it was COVID first, and then it was like the administration of the University of Iceland, and yeah, it was just bad luck, I guess. But yeah.
But in the end, good luck.
Yes,
It sounds
exactly.
Like you had a lot of fun there.
I did, and I had in-person classes,
Oh,
which
lucky
was
you.
amazing.
That's so
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
That's really nice. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, cool. So going back to Groningen now, our program, the
Yes.
LLB. Do you like over the course, because we've done for years now, over the course, like what did you think as a whole? Like, do you think the courses are much more theoretical or practical? Do you think that's a good or bad thing? What could you kind of give the university as like a little thing, maybe improve this? Like, I would have loved to have these different things incorporated in the course.
Well, about the practical theoretical part, I do think it's very theoretical. But I also say that I didn't expect anything else because it's a research university and research courses are pretty theoretical and research based. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, or I didn't expect anything else. Over the whole course, I do think it was very like Eurocentric, all the views. Like we had some lecturers that brought in like examples from countries outside of Europe, and we had some cases in international law as well that were outside of Europe. But I think there's still more possibilities also like in the theoretical part to have like scholars and views and examples from countries that are not Europe. So that was one thing that I talked about as well with my friends. And one more thing is that I had a legal philosophy course in Spain, and I really enjoyed that actually, and we didn't really have anything like that here. Kind of also just thinking about the concept of the law and everything behind that and kind of questioning it in that way. So I really would have loved to see that. And then for my thesis now, I'm doing feminist approaches to international law, which is also really interesting. And well, yeah, I had never heard anything of it before during my whole degree. So that is definitely something really interesting that I'd highly recommend to the university to include in some way.
No, I love that. That's very different from what everyone else has said.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I love that. 'Cause everyone else has been just like, yeah, we would have loved to like maybe have a moot court or something like that, because like I told you earlier, like it's very much just the honors college that does that, and then like the rest of us is just like what you said, just research, which is cool. I love doing research. So I was also started like research assistant, but yeah, no, I love that. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I've never done a moot court. But I also don't really have the urge to do one. So I don't really mind that we never had one. I think it would be a great experience, of course. But I also think it's nothing that I would want to do in the future. So I don't really mind that we didn't do one.
No, I get that. Okay, perfect. That's it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you to everyone for participating into this project. We really want to give students a platform in our show, and we hope to have you back soon here for another testimony session on the part of students. We think it's really important to give feedback to the university and kind of share our opinions and our experiences about the LLB and international relations program in order to like build community, and also in order to improve the university response, especially in the context of the pandemic, which has been a very, very big factor in the university program altogether. So thank you guys again, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.